is great to be here. First, I want to thank your two teachers for this hard gymnastic work early in the morning by making a circle. I always just find that when I'm part of the circle for a book club, I find like it's more personal than me standing up there. But first of all, teachers, please, would you sit? Sure. Make yourself comfortable.
Sit down. Come sit in back.
Okay. First of all, I want to say yes, I'm Susan Wigden. This is my husband, Bruce. Bruce is not only my husband and photographer and website designer, but he also helps me edit. And he travels with me to schools in New York, especially Staten Island, and Jersey, and Portland, and Florida, where we now live half the year. But Staten Island is really our home. We're in Eltingville. And I just want to tell you, this is the 6th visit that we've made to Blessed Sacrament. And I will tell you, and this is the truth, that Blessed Sacrament is our favorite school. Back in 2005, when I wrote a funny rhyming picture book called Suppose.
I remember that.
You remember that? Okay, I came to the school. That was my first rhyming picture book to be published. And I came to this school, and in my office, I have a picture of me with a photographer from the Staten Island Advance who came to take pictures that day. And although there is no photographer here or reporter from the Staten Island Advance, I assure you that when we go home, Bruce will forward pictures of this event to the Advance, and let's hope that they put it in the paper. So you need to look out for that. And we also will put you on a website, because teachers, we know that we have permission, which is great. So by the end of the evening, what we're going to do at the end of this group, we're going to form a crowd again, and we'll take a picture for the website. So, and I believe the website is in the back of this book. Yes, it is. Has anybody gone to the website to view the website? Because you will see that there are lots of pictures of me at Blessed Sacrament. Your feelings, and you might get something that's totally different than someone else. It's like watching a movie. It's like viewing a beautiful photo. Everyone has a different take on it, so please don't be shy. And again, what is the significance of the title? And would you have given the book a different title? Okay. Here we go. Thank you.
It was significant because when your older son went to Miami and there was cloudy skies there.
Okay, so you think that. Okay, well that was a story that I was just telling you about my son this past weekend. Okay, that might be a thought for another book, but in reading this book, okay, my son's visit to Miami happened this past weekend, so I just kind of told you that, but if you could think back to why it might be Cloudy Skies Over Miami as the title. This girl right here?
Because when he landed, the plane said it was cloudy skies over Miami.
Yes, that's exactly one reason we could look at it, because the pilot made an announcement of, here are people coming from New York and Staten Island, and it's cold, and you really want to hear it's warm in Florida. And if you've ever taken a plane trip and you hear the pilot announce, you're kind of praying, oh, I hope it's good. Cloudy skies over Miami with a temperature reading of 78. Does anybody else know why it might be called Cloudy Skies also?
Because at the end of the story, Josh thought that his uncle and his grandpa got in the boat accident.
Okay, that's another way to view it. Not so much what was said, but from your feelings that cloudy skies, meaning dark and damp, Josh may have believed that his grandpa and his best friend were in a boating accident. Good job there. Very good job, because sometimes when you read, you need to read between the lines. Thank you. Would you have given it a different title, or did you like that title? You like the title. Okay, anybody else? Yes?
I would have given it a very bad fever in my hand.
Bad what?
Fever. Because it's like he's having a fever and he doesn't really know what's happening and he's all confused.
Okay, okay, good thought. Why did he think it may not be a good idea?
Because like his grandma and grandma are like silly and like they always like they're out of control.
Yeah, you might have thought that. Anybody else make a comment about that?
He thought he might be bored because he doesn't know what they like to do. He's never traveled alone by himself.
Okay, that's a very good thought. Throughout the book, there's never been anything about him being a little worried about traveling by himself. You have to kind of think about, well, he's worried about the hole in his sock when he's going through. And, he may have been a little nervous. And sometimes when we're nervous, we really don't tell anyone, but we react in certain ways. Anybody else think why yes?
Maybe he was too young for that.
Maybe he was. Okay. Okay, the third question I have, which, do you think Josh was at all nervous about flying by himself? If you recall, he thought his dad was nervous. And he thought his dad, remember when his dad was discussing whether he should hold a flight ticket, he thought his dad, but what would make you think that maybe he was nervous, maybe not saying anything? Okay, this person right here.
Because he doesn't want to show his actions, how he feels to his wife, because she might think that he doesn't want Josh to go.
Okay, yes, the dad didn't want so much to show he was nervous to his wife. That's true too. What about Josh? Do you think something about him, or would you have been nervous if you were going alone? Anybody ever fly alone by themselves yet? Anybody? Okay.
My cousin has.
Your cousin? How old is your cousin?
She's 12 turning 15.
Okay, and sometimes parents send their children. They don't just send them. It's like, remember at the beginning when Josh thought he was going by himself and he was going to be in a hotel? There's very careful planning when children go on a plane by themselves. One time my sister was flying and there was a 4-year-old child next to her who was flying and had one of the flight attendants next to her all the time. Do you think it was good that Josh actually sat next to a woman with a small child on the plane? What was good and what was bad about that, yes?
What was bad about it is that he was like annoying.
Yes.
And what was good is that I'm not sure.
You're not sure what was good. Okay, well, this boy here.
It was good because it was fun.
It was funny. It was. It was funny. Okay. What was good also, in addition, okay?
He was distracted, like
He was distracted. Older than me, an adult, read the book, and she laughed, and my publisher laughed, and my son laughed. But I was hoping, because I wrote this for children 9 to 13, I was hoping you guys would laugh, and girls. Now, what would you have done? Okay, let's say you've already told me that you haven't flown alone. But what would you have done if you were being annoyed by a little child next to you? Whoa, that's a rough question. Okay, someone who didn't get a chance? Okay. That's a very, very, you know, I think if I were on a plane, one time I have to tell you, I was going to the Dominican Republic with my family, and there was a little boy across the aisle who sadly enough got ill and threw up. And it was kind of projectile throwing up. And I was saying, okay, if he does it again, I was coming close to it, saying, please change what I say, but then fortunately it stopped. But I was close to it. So that's a very assertive thing. If you're really being annoyed, you can say, excuse me, I really need to change my seat. So that's really good. Anything else anybody would have done?
I would just ignore it.
You would have ignored it. That's another way. Okay. Unless you have too many sticky lollipops on you.
I would ask the mother to switch seats.
You would ask the what?
The mother to switch seats with the son.
Okay, but yes, that's a good idea. Put the child at the end. That's why I was thinking, that's right, the child was to... How do you think the mother would have felt especially Beth, how do you think she would have felt if Josh said, could you have your child switch seats? Do you think she would have done that? Gee, I don't know. You know, different people are different. That didn't come up.
I would ask for a whole bunch of earplugs, and then I'd put some in him and put some in me.
Earplugs are good, yes. Yes.
I would say, excuse me, can you get your child to stop licking his lollipop and showing his...
Okay. Okay, I guess licking the lollipop, you can't really get someone to get their child to stop licking the lollipop. But if the saliva was dripping on you, then you could say, excuse me, but your child's saliva is on my knee. Could you help him? So, you know, there's ways to assert yourself of being polite. Okay. Okay, now this is a personal question, and if you want to answer it, please do. If you don't, I can understand. You don't have to mention the exact relative's name, but do you have anyone in your life, example, grandparents, aunts, uncles, godparents, neighbors, who remind you of Josh's grandparents and why?
Well, my grandpa reminds me for Josh's grandpa, and my grandma reminds me of Josh's grandma because my grandma because my grandpa always yells at my grandpa because he's like, you're wrong, it's that way, and she's like, oh, and she's like, no, it's that way, and like he doesn't like me drinking out of the bottle of water.
Oh, really? It sounds like a lot of grandparents are like that. Okay.
My grandma and grandpa are just like
Just like them. Wow, I think I might have been writing for the majority of grandparents. Okay.
My grandparents like that because they're always fighting.
They're always fighting, but tell me the truth. Just because they're fighting, does that mean that they don't love each other? You know that they do.
My dad reminds me of Josh's grandpa
Because they're both goofy. Gee, I didn't know if the word goofy was still a cool word to use, because goofy was a word I always used. Okay, when Josh's grandpa said that nobody wore clothes with big bright colors when he was a kid, how did that make Josh feel? Surprised? Annoyed?
shocked.
Shocked?
Curious, like what they
Curious?
insulted.
Insulted? Okay.
Josh's grandpa was really old.
That his grandpa was really old. Has anybody ever said that to you? Like a relative? What's that you're wearing? What are you, a belt too? Because guess what? That does happen to the generations. And guess what? When you guys and girls grow up, get married, you'll be thinking that that about your children. That's just the way of life, right, teachers?
Absolutely.
Okay, what were some of the things that Josh's grandparents did that made him want to go home?
The mothballs, I keep saying silly things.
The mothballs. Anybody ever hear that word, mothballs? You did? Wow, I didn't think you people even knew about mothballs.
Like the bickering.
The bickering. Oh, bickering is such a good word. Bickering is not really fighting. Bickering reminds me of like kind of two hens going at each other. You know, that it's like a circle thing and it doesn't stop. It's a great word, bickering. That certainly did pose a big problem. Make fun of his clothes. Why did Josh feel guilty when he learned about a boating accident?
Because they heard, like, when they were going for the job, and Josh was going on for the job, there was like a big circle of people, and they said something about going and the grandfather and his friend were out at the boat, so they had to check out it was
Okay, but why was Josh feeling a little guilty?
It might not have happened if he didn't say anything about the outfit to his grandfather.
Right. I think that Josh and his grandpa learned something from this experience. And what?
Yeah, his grandpa probably learned to do something Josh thinks better. And Josh learned to not feel less insulted.
What were the two things going on that was very similar with Josh and his grandpa that they weren't doing at the start? They were both not doing something when the grandpa wanted him to wear the outfit and Josh didn't want to. What was going on there that they were both doing that could have really changed things? Okay, that happens.
They weren't both being truthful.
They weren't truthful and they weren't what?
They weren't really communicating.
Thank you. Stand up. They weren't really communicating. Thank you. If there was any message that I wanted to give, is that people need to communicate. Always, when there's a lack of communication, big trouble, okay? You can always fix things, learn about yourself, learn about other people when you communicate. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you have to say things that you're not comfortable with saying. Sometimes you have to tell people no. Sometimes teachers have to communicate something to their students that might sound harsh. Has that ever happened, teachers, that you had to communicate something to students that might sound harsh, like, if you don't study more, you're going to fail, it's not going to work out? Okay, that's communicating. It's not easy for them to say that. And they're wishing, oh, I wish I didn't have to, but when they communicate it, it makes a change, and change is what we're looking for. So if Josh and his grandpa spoke to each other from the start, and if you notice, at the end, the grandpa, they both kind of take blame, and then they communicate, and everything suddenly gets fixed. Okay, do you think that when Josh learned it wasn't his grandpa in the accident, and then he put things in perspective, Anybody know what I mean by that word? That's a very adult question to ask, and I'm going to that. When he learned, oh wow, it wasn't, then he looked at what he was upset with. He put things in perspective. I saw a hand up, yes.
That he was giving a lot of joy and not a lot of guilt, because when he heard that there was a boat accident, he heard his grandfather's age, and then they tried to check where Josh's grandmother was, and Josh couldn't go into the room because he was too young, and then he heard a kid said, up here, and then.
Who didn't I kind of like in the story? Actually, there was no one I didn't like in the story. I thought that everybody had their place, and you know what I loved? Did you like the part when Josh looked at his family album and he reminisced? This is his parents, his grandparents actually kept, excuse me, that's what happens when I talk too much. His grandparents, every monumental thing that happened in Josh's life was so much joy to his grandparents that they photographed everything. I liked that part, but there was nobody that I really didn't like.
Who do you think was the most annoying?
Who do I think was the most annoying? Wow.
Tommy.
You know what? I guess Tommy. Tommy, little children can be annoying, but guess what? It's a part of learning, okay? And all of us, when we were little, were annoyed. And it's okay, because they're a work in progress. So if you are around someone that's annoying, always think that they're learning, okay? But yeah, Tommy was, especially with the alphabet, woo, okay.
How long did it take you to write the book?
How long did it take me? Probably about 1 year. Because there was a lot of revising, okay? You just don't write a story and send it to a publisher. Just like you don't, and that's, has anybody, I don't know, was anybody ever in the audience here that I gave an author process talk? Okay, and that author process talked about what you have to do to be published. And one of the things you have to do is revise. And let me give you some advice. When you're doing a paper, an essay, a composition, and you hand it in to your teachers, do not write it and hand it in. Read it over and over and over again. Until
Well, thank you. I was on the ELA test last week. Do we have to do the rough draft? I said, yes, you have to do the rough draft, and you're getting graded on it. Listen.
Okay. I reread my story, maybe 40 times. Kept finding errors. My publisher found errors. Bruce found errors. People who had helped me edit found errors. Punctuation, wrong spelling. And it happens in the most popular books out there. So it's not about just writing it. Oh yeah, I could have written it. Sure, I could have stayed up, but the revising is what takes a long time, and it should. Okay.
Who wrote chapter 1 of the Magic Movie?
What's that?
Who wrote chapter 1 of the Magic Movie?
Okay, did you read that book?
No.
Okay, that's why you're asking the question. Okay, I don't know if you people get a required reading list, or if you could, if you read, I don't know how I can, for the summer, okay, is there a way to get my book on the list so that they can choose from it?
You could take the information and present it to the principal and double check, absolutely.
Okay, because there is a reason, what I'd like to do for the 4th graders, and I will speak to your principal after. What I'd like to do for the 4th grades is to perhaps have that other book on your 5th grade list for the summer, where you could order it, and then I would come back and do this again, okay? I'm not going to tell you about chapter 1 because I have to tell you, the question you asked me, who wrote chapter 1? When I submitted that book, my publisher actually asked me, is there a chapter 1? And I said, no, there isn't. But if you continue to read the book, you'll learn why it was called that. But that's a really fun book. And by the way, Bruce co-authored that with me and wrote the baseball scenes. That too takes place in Staten Island at the Great Kills Little League. Anybody familiar with the Great Kills Little League? Okay, and the picture of the boy on the cover is at the Great Kills Little League. So that I'm going to speak to her about that, because if you're excited about me being here now, which I am, then we can come back next time for your during the summer reading. Okay, where were we with questions for me? Wait, I'm sorry. Who was the most fun character? I think I liked Grandma Doris. I think I liked her. I liked her. I think she was fun and caring, and I loved the way she cooked for Josh and how much she loved him. And do you think she had something in mind? This is a question I didn't write, but as I'm thinking, do you think Grandma Doris may have had something in mind when she presented Josh with dessert on the terrace and also pictures of him in the photograph book? Do you think she might have had something in mind because she knew that he was upset? Do you think she did that for a reason? Yes, she may have wanted him to say, hey, take a look at this. I know you're upset now, but we love you. She might have did that with, and then those photographs. I bet your grandparents, aunts, uncles, godparents, I just bet they have photographs of you from lots of events in your life. Am I correct? Mm-hmm. Questions? Okay. What's my favorite chapter in the book? I would say the very last, when Josh goes back to the apartment and the communication on the terrace between his grandpa and him. Okay, this boy right here. Why did I pick Miami? That's a great question. Well, Bruce and I go to Florida during the winter months, as I said, and I think when people mention Florida, probably one of the areas that come to mind most popular would be Miami. It's most noted, like if I said, okay, Pembroke Pines or Coral Gables, but most people would know Miami in Florida, correct?
Why did you make the main character a boy instead of a girl?
Why did I make them? You know, I've been asked that many times, and I think it's because I have a son. And when you're a parent and you see things, you usually see them through the eyes of your child. And I have to say, the 2 novels that were written were through the eyes of a boy. But I really believe that girls have related this as well.
How did you come up with this book?
How did I come up with this book? Gee, well, let's just say this. A little bit of this and a little bit of that, meaning my own son's experience about visiting his grandma when he was young. Lee was not 12 when he went on a plane by himself. He was 15, but some things happened that made him wonder. But as he grew up, his view of his grandmother changed as well. And you're having a question right here. The person that hasn't asked anything yet, sitting right next to me. Go ahead.
Were you like Staten Island or Miami?
Oh, what a great question. What do I like more, Staten Island or Miami? Let's put it this way. We ourselves, we stay in a place called Delray. Anybody in here at Delray Beach? Okay. We have been to Miami. Staten Island is in my heart. And Florida is more like a vacation. place. So that, maybe you could think of what my real meaning underlining is. Staten Island is in my heart, and that's my vacation place. Okay?
What was your need to write this book?
What would I?
What was your need to write this book?
What was the need to write this story? The need was this. You know what I don't see anymore? And it makes me sad. Well, let me just tell you what I grew up with. I lived in Brooklyn. Okay, anybody know about Brooklyn, New York? May have parents there, may have lived there one time. Okay, I grew up in Brooklyn. And in Brooklyn, when I was your age, do you know what would happen at night? People would sit outside on their stoops. And very often the neighbors were in their 70s and 80s. And they would tell the children stories. And I was fascinated myself. I had a neighbor who was a seamstress, and she was about 75, and I was about 10 or 11. And I would sit out at night, and she would tell me stories. And I used to just sit there for hours and say to my mom, wait, Mrs. Rosenbaum was telling me some stories. I'll be in a few minutes, Mom. Well, guess what? I don't see that so much anymore. What I do see is people walking around text messaging, talking on phones, which is fine, and that's good. And I don't want to sound like Josh's grandparents who are like, oh, they're kind of old-fashioned. I do that too. But I don't see you people, generation, kind of hanging with the older people. So I thought, for those moments, if I could connect it, and you can relate to it, even in a book, that was my need. Does everybody get what I mean by that?